into anything.
So show me these messages you were talking about.
You want to see those?
Yeah, I want to see these messages you kept talking about. He's checking his DMs of all the women that is hitting on him.
That comment you made was not smart because all of them are like, let's see it. It's fire D. I was like, yeah, it probably wasn't the best because now I'm getting hit on. Look, come holler at me and we'll send Gypsy somewhere else and you can lay it on me.
I knew that it was going to happen. That's why I was like, let's get a joint account, because I knew that it was going to happen.
This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest, besides being honest, with my attorneys. Even that, I haven't been completely honest with them, so.
I am so in love with this man. In the 5 years that we were separated, I was in pain. I couldn't get over him. Like, we were robbed of a real relationship, of a real chance together. And I know I'm bawling right now. It's just, I'm so emotional.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Monday, December 2nd, 2024. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is playing games on the internet, and while she plays games and plays the victim, there's rumors circulating that her new series on Lifetime is going to be all about how the internet has been mean to her, and she is now a victim of the internet, even though she made the choice to very publicly have a television show and a social media platform where she hoped to profit off of her notoriety by becoming none other than a social media influencer that talked about makeup, her ex-boyfriends, her current boyfriend, her pregnancy, and every single person that's done her wrong, right? She's used her platform to have friends go after the people that speak out about her. She has put out people's phone numbers and addresses by proxy through her friends. She has put out people's real names that are critics of her. She has put out police reports about people that talk about her, all of this gaslighting. Yeah. But the real tea is that Gypsy's about to be a mom, and there's a really significant probability that when this baby is born, Gypsy is going to have CPS in her life the same day because she is still on parole. Technically, Gypsy is still considered an inmate in the state of Missouri, and she has not completed her full sentence. She's also legally married to another man and is having a baby by another man, and that paternity in a court of law has not yet been established. It's a whole mess. And Gypsy got in trouble a couple weeks ago with her parole and had to go offline because she was again causing trouble on the internet. Well, I had an opportunity to speak to someone from the Bayou, and she's not a family member. She just knows them, but doesn't know them directly, doesn't know Gypsy. But her husband's brother is related to Christy because everyone's related down in the Bayou. And she had some experience with the DCFS people down there. And I also had an opportunity to speak with someone that works with women in Texas and Louisiana in reentry, and what it is like for someone in reentry like Gypsy to go through a birth while still on parole and have the kind of charge that she does, and what does this mean for the baby? There's a lot of delusional fantasies that have been playing out publicly with Gypsy having gender reveals and baby showers and pretending like everything's going to be normal, setting up a nursery, when the truth is we don't even know if she's going to get custody of this child. We don't know if CPS is going to take that baby. We really don't know. And there's laws here that are not going to be necessarily in her favor because there is something in the state of Louisiana about the best interest of a child and identifying children that are at risk. And because Gypsy is on parole and her conviction involves something that she did against a family member that ended their life, this could not bode well for her. So let's talk about it.
I'm a person that I'm taking the steps to make sure that I'm mentally stable enough to be a parent. I might not be a perfect parent. Nobody is.
Yeah.
But I am going to do the best I can and make educated choices with my child and have the support to do so.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard is good at a few things, and one of those things is lying, and the other thing is being a con, a master manipulator, and a liar. This is a girl that was faking not being able to walk for years, would go into the hospital and really lay into this con, so much so that she wouldn't even move in the hospital for 3 days, pretending like she couldn't move her legs, having them carry her when she knew she could walk. This is a woman that faked a lot of things because she and her mom were getting a lot of money, trips, donations, celebrity attention. And now she's come out of prison and she hasn't even completed her sentence. And one of those is that she must complete outpatient treatment. She has to go through outpatient therapy, which she hasn't completed that portion. So she's not healed. She has not recovered. She didn't do any recovery in prison. She had access to therapy and refused to do it. And now she's on podcasts, already setting the stage for people that she's not going to be a perfect parent and she's going to do what she's going to do, but she's going to have support of the people around her. But she's already setting it up that she is going to make mistakes because she's not equipped to be a parent. Gypsy can barely take care of herself. She can't live on her own. She hasn't been able to live on her own. She doesn't have stable employment. Doing podcasts and writing a book and doing this stupid show, that's not stable. It's not long term. And it's not giving her skills necessary to have a normal job in the real world once all of this is done. None of this is sustainable. What she's doing is grifting off of the infamy and trying to morph that into fame, which she'll never have. She'll always be infamous. Comments like these cued me into things going wrong. But it wasn't just that. It was that back in July, I spoke to Christy Blanchard about this. And I told her, based on the law and child welfare in the state of Louisiana, Gypsy isn't necessarily cleared to be a parent because of her still being property of Missouri, being an inmate, and the fact that she has a violent crime against her mother, which is actually deemed a threat to her child. And Christy told me then that she knew that CPS would be involved. In fact, around that same time, there were rumors that CPS had already made contact with them. And it was in the same interview on VIL Files where Ken made weird comments about co-parenting with her.
More about the technical things. So I am still living with my parents in Cutoff, which is an hour away from him. So we're like, and I'm going to be living there until I'm off of parole. So we're like, okay, how is this going to work whenever the baby's born? Like, how many days can I spend with you? And how many days can you spend with me? You know, who will she be with? As you know, we're going back and forth and we're doing kind of essentially co-parenting. Had together, it was magical, but in a sense, it was a honeymoon phase all
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I need to know how you react to conflict. What are your parenting goals? What are your parenting skills? Like, you know, what are your thoughts for the future? Those are all really significant conversations that couples usually have, you know, well into a year of their relationship. And here we are a month in and we're already pregnant.
Gypsy's on parole and she has restrictions. One of those restrictions is that she has to live with her mom, her stepmom, and her dad. Another restriction is regarding travel. She has to get approval to travel outside of her parish. She has to get approval to go places outside of her parish. That's not easy when you have a kid, okay? It's interesting because she calls it co-parenting. It's not co-parenting if you're in a relationship, right? Theoretically, they could make somehow. She also fails to recognize that, you know, she's legally married to someone else. She's not legally married to him. They got pregnant before they knew anything about each other. They knew each other in prison as a girlfriend-boyfriend prison relationship. But I told you guys back in July, they almost broke up in July because she thought he was a loser because he was a bartender and she didn't think that would be a suitable job for having a kid. She thinks he's too immature. They tell you things without telling you things, right? Co-parenting. Where is the baby going to stay? Who is she going to be with? That's a really weird thing for a mom to say, especially if you're going to be the primary caregiver. You would assume you would go with the child because it's your child too. But it almost sounds like it's a custody situation. Listen, I already know there's a million things about are they together, are they not together? I really don't care. What I care about is that this is all a smokescreen. They're using coded language and they're lying. Gypsy has said she doesn't have a parole violation having this child. Not technically, but being on parole while she has a baby can be problematic because at any time she can actually get arrested and go to prison. Is it in the best interest of a child when a parent is on parole, especially if she's not abiding by the parole, like we've witnessed, for the mom to have custody? What were to happen if Gypsy and Ken break up? What happens if they end up in family court? What happens if anyone in her family, one of the aunts on Dee Dee's side, an uncle, a cousin, a sibling, files an emergency petition for parental termination? What if anyone from the internet tips off CPS for a child in need of service or a at-risk child? What happens then to the baby? Well, it's complicated. Technically, it's not illegal for Gypsy to have a baby on parole. Technically, it's not a violation, but Gypsy hasn't completed her sentence and she hasn't completed what she needs to complete in order to successfully finish her parole. Gypsy also has mandatory mental health requirements that she has to complete. They have noted that she needs mental health therapy, which is automatically putting her in a category where the state of Missouri is qualifying her as maybe unstable due to what she endured as a child, if you believe all of the stories. A precursor and a warning of what could potentially happen to a child is who their parent is and what is their parent's history. And something that's in her history is that she committed matricide. She killed her mother. It's actually considered a crime against a family member. And when you have a violent crime and a conviction for murder, that can actually impact your ability to have custody of a child, especially if you end up in the family court system in a custody dispute, or if CPS gets involved because they're alerted that this child could be in immediate threat and danger. The state of Louisiana looks at what the best interests are for a child. Some of those are the potential for a child to be abused, the love, affection, and other emotional ties between the party and the child, the capacity and the disposition of each party to give the child love, affection, and spiritual guidance, the capacity and disposition of each party to provide food, clothing, medical care, and other material needs. By now, you should know that Gypsy doesn't have her own place to live, and she doesn't have stable employment. She doesn't have a driver's license, and she relies exclusively on her stepmother and Ken to do just about everything that she wants to do. She has no real independence of her own, and she hasn't taken steps to get her driver's license. And that doesn't mean you have to have a driver's license to have a kid, but it's a good start. She also doesn't have her own health insurance. She's still on Ryan's health insurance. The permanence of the family unit of the existing or proposed custodial home or homes. She's in a brand new relationship. They're not married and she's still married to someone else. And she's in a relatively new relationship with Christy and Rod because she didn't see them for 10 years before her arrest. And then she was in prison for another 8 years and they didn't raise her. The moral fitness of each party. And so, as far as it affects the welfare of the child, the history of substance abuse, violence, or criminal activity of the party. Gypsy has admitted to having a chemical dependency that she's never received treatment for. She says she was addicted to opiates. She also has a history of violence and a felony murder conviction. The mental and physical health of each party, evidence that an abused parent suffers from the effects of past abuse by the other parent shall not be grounds for denying it. The home, school, and community history of the child, the reasonable preference of the child, and the distance between the prospective residences and the responsibility for the care and rearing of the child exercised by each party. In cases involving a history of family violence, whether or not a party has sought relief under applicable law, the court shall determine an award of custody or visitation in accordance with these different laws. But the court may only find a history of committing family violence if the court finds that one instance of the family violence has resulted in serious bodily injury. So, when looking at the best interests of a child from a DCFS standpoint, they're going to look at her role as a mother and they're going to know that she caused serious bodily injury to her mother. It doesn't matter if she wielded the knife or not. That's her conviction. Okay. And she hasn't completed her sentence. There's a potential for her to be abused, the child, because Gypsy is a product of an abusive home. And that wasn't an excuse for her to kill her mom. But it also is that without proper therapy herself and the capacity to actually take responsibility for her crime, which she still deflects and says she did not do, there's a propensity that she could repeat the cycle and transfer what she was doing, what she and her mom did which was grifting and lying to get free stuff and faking illnesses, to then become part of that with her daughter. The child is at risk of being a victim of Munchausen's by proxy or malingering, whichever way you view it. It's up in the air. Some say no, some say yes. I'm of the opinion that mostly it was malingering, but she's at risk because Gypsy's videos already have her talking about all the medical issues she's experiencing. She's very focused on that still. Gypsy is also in trouble if they end up in family court, because here's the deal. A judge, if they get involved and say Ken and Gypsy split up, convictions of certain felonies often lead to parents losing custodial rights. This includes homicide, aggravated assault, stalking, kidnapping, or any crime in of S nature or anything that endangers a child. Certain criminal convictions can also prevent a parent from gaining child custody or retaining it. Any felony conviction that involves violence can cause a person to be barred from seeing their children. However, in some cases, a parent might be granted supervised visitation based on certain circumstances. Felony convictions such as aggravated assault, homicide, kidnapping, stalking typically prevent a parent from having custody. If a parent has a prior criminal history from many years earlier, it might be overlooked if the offense was not violent or a person was convicted of a misdemeanor. But a family court judge can't ignore her crime. They can't ignore that she committed matricide. And if she is going to go to court with Ken and if they split, she's not going to win. And frankly, I talked to the woman I talked to that works with women that are coming out of prison and in reentry, and she helps them with their treatment programs, works in their treatment programs with them, helps them provide stable patterns and jobs, and gives them the tools to succeed, all of which Gypsy has not done or been given. There's a very high likelihood that CPS is already involved, that because of the crime and the fact that she's on parole, and because a lot of her public statements are very concerning, she's made statements publicly about her co-defendant, Nick, and that if they had a child, he was going to essay the child when the child turned 13 or 14, and she would stay with that person. Her crime itself was highly sexual and deviant. Even though she was never charged with a sex crime, there's a level of deviant behavior when it comes to sex that also could put this child at risk. She doesn't have a moral compass to know right from wrong to this day, and she continues to make bad choices. CPS can also take a look at how well she has complied with her parole guidelines. Has she had violations? Has she been in trouble? Has she been warned? Has she been threatening people? Has she spoken to other inmates? Yes, 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 and yes. Has she had warnings from her parole? Yes. Has she been told if she screws up again, she can go back to prison? Yes. Does she have a history of mental illness? Yes. Is she being properly treated for it? No. Has she admitted to having overwhelming emotions and anger and going off on people? Yes, we've seen her scream on the show. She has admitted to playing games with people to hurt them. She's admitted to being a pathological liar. It's going to be really tricky for her. She lives in a fantasy where she believes that she's going to have all the rights of any other mother, but she really won't. She has the state of Missouri over supervising her over Louisiana, and they're ultimately who she belongs to right now. She's not free to be a mother right now. Her first priority is her parole. Add in all the layers of her history and her lack of recovery, CPS could, if they wanted to, ask her to potentially have someone else in the family be the custodian and that she be limited in her contact with the child until she's done the work that she needs to do to have access to the child. Or if if they go through a DCFS investigation and they go through the process of determining who is a responsible party here, and if Ken is deemed the responsible party, they are likely to say you can have have the baby, Ken, but she can't live with you. I think the restrictions on living are not just parole. I think the restrictions on living also have to do with the fact that there's a risk that she's going to lose this child, and they're not telling you that. They're lying. They're acting like everything is hunky dory and it's going to be okay. And this was the biggest fear the family had, was her getting pregnant, because they feared if she got pregnant, she's not equipped to taking care of the child, and they feared that the child would be taken by the state because of her parole. So don't be disillusioned that this is all a performance, because it's what she's done for years. The other person I talked to who grew up in Lafourche Parish, said that she's had experience with other family members that have been on parole and probation and have a history not like Gypsy, but violent. And CPS is at the birth, making directives about what the plan will be for the medical care for the child and where the child's going to go living. And then the other question is, say she's deemed unfit, can Rod and Christy take the baby? Well, they can't really take the baby, because if she's deemed unfit, she can't live with the child. So right off the bat, Christy and Rod can't take the baby unless she moves out. And then if she moves out, she's violating her parole. This is putting everything into chaos. And this child didn't ask for that. And I am not at all excited about the fact that Gypsy could lose this child. I'm just trying to tell people this is the reality. If it doesn't happen before Ken and Gypsy split up, because they will, it'll happen after. But Gypsy will not be the one raising this child. She won't. She will not be able to overcome her felony conviction of matricide and violence against a family member. It already puts her at risk of committing a similar crime. And I'll tell you one thing. When she and Ryan split, what was she proud about? She told me she was proud that she didn't kill him and that she knew she could leave without killing someone. Is that someone you would want raising a child? Would you want someone raising a child that's out doxing and harassing and stalking and trying to find people that criticize them, threatening them with guns and having friends threaten them with guns? Is that someone that's equipped to be a parent? Is her obsession with herself and her image going to make her child a priority? Again, this is a woman that said she didn't have time to donate to a child. Donate. When you're a parent, you're not donating. You're just being a parent. Gypsy is, if DCFS has not yet made contact with her, they will. It's not if, it's when. And then she has to go through a ton of steps in order to prove her fitness. And they may order that she go through an entire neuropsychological evaluation to get a proper diagnosis, not some BS telehealth, therapist that's not actually having her go through the detailed testing that can actually pinpoint if she has a personality disorder, which most people think she does. This baby is at risk of a lifetime of exploitation, abuse, and neglect. And the best thing that could be done would be for her rights to be stripped as a parent, that she have no access to a child, and that somebody else, either Ken or someone in the family, raise the child. And I don't think Gypsy is recognizing just how serious this is and how her continued bad behavior is just making it easier for parole and CPS to say, you're not fit. And that's what's happening. Now, could she end up with the child? Sure. But if she ends up in family court, like I said, most judges are not going to allow her custody because of her conviction of murder. It's too violent of a crime. It's not aggravated assault. It's not simple battery. It's murder. It's not manslaughter. It's murder. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.